Year 71 of the authentic calendar, the year that would be known in history as the beginning of the Third Galactic Reich. By that time, humanity continued with its conquest of the cosmos, and the completion of the Dyson Sphere accelerated the process of space colonization. By this stage, 70% of the human population had left the Earth, and in some module in space, specifically Module 77, there is this group of students, which are taken as exchange students to the Sakimori Academy. The question is that it is supposed that they announced that they would only take 2 exchange students, but in this little group there are 5 students. Does not this seem suspicious? Of course it is, but you will see it later. So stay with this little group in mind. Meanwhile, in the Sakimori Academy, our main character Haruto is in the Sakimori Academy. There is our main character Haruto, who is giving his all in a competition to see who eats faster, and his competitor is called Shoko. So there they were giving their all in the competition, but there is a reason to compete since they are doing it to see who uses the enclosure. However, Haruto ends up losing the competition. Wow man, I was counting on you, thanks for nothing. After losing, Haruto clarifies that he didn't want to be part of this competition, but his friend tells him that he can blame the rock paper scissors gods for getting him into this. Meanwhile, the group of students I mentioned before welcome them to Geyer's Module 77, but right away the group gets really violent, specifically this white-haired guy, as he eliminates those who welcomed them. Why didn't I tell you? But this group entered the Sakimori Academy of Infiltrators, and while we're at it, I'm going to introduce them to you, since in this group are Adre, Hnum, Elelf, Kubir, and Finelixane. While the little group is infiltrating, the main character is in class, and when he receives a message from his friend who asks him why he doesn't tell Shuko what he feels, Haruto, by surprise of the message, began to cough and everything, and as Shuko heard him coughing, she sent him a message asking him what's wrong. The main character answers that nothing is wrong, but Shuko doesn't believe him, so it is. And he tells her that he keeps looking at her, and as she suspects that something is going on, she asks Haruto to let her see his phone. Haruto repeats that nothing is going on, and for obvious reasons, he doesn't want to let Shuko see his phone. But at that moment, the partner who was behind takes the phone from the prota and passes it to Shuko. However, the prota uses a trick so that Shuko does not see the phone, since he says, "Hey, give it to me, or I will not talk to you again, Shuko." When she hears what the prota said, asks why he was looking at her so much then. The prota answers him that he thought that Shuko was very pretty in class. This surprises Shuko, so to soften it a little, the prota says that it is only when she is quiet. On the other hand, Inuzuka only talks about money, since he says that with the time he will be the richest in the world, in that the group that is infiltrated approaches them since they want to ask some information, but Alez says that they have to minimize the contact with the natives, and it turns out that he already knew the data since he knows the way, returning with Haruto. He is talking to Shoko, and she tells him that he has no determination and that in the competition they did before he didn't even pretend to win. The prota replies that this is not true and tells her that it's just that he prefers a world where you don't have to compete for such things. Haruto even says that they could have used half the room each. He happened to be listening to everything, so he approaches the prota and takes the keys from him. After doing that, he asks him if he would cut half the yolk of a ham and egg breakfast, or if he would split his love for a girl in half. So he tells him that happiness can't be split in half. Haruto tries to take the keys from him, but only ends up falling to the ground, and he continues with his questions, as he tells Haruto that even though he doesn't want to fight, he asks him what would happen if someone came and punched him in the face. So he tells him that if he wants that not to happen, he has no choice but to fight. With everything that happened, Shoko was angry, but Haruto thanks her and tells her that she doesn't have to be like that because of him, that it's okay and she already forgot about it. Old man, what happened with keeping interaction to a minimum? While Haruto was cleaning up, he dropped this, where someone was asking for their love to be reciprocated, at which point Shoko approaches the prota and asks him if he is making a wish, since it is said around the neighborhood that if you confess your feelings here, they will be reciprocated, since it is a legendary shrine. Shoko finds this amusing, considering the school has only been open for 3 years, and just when the prota was about to tell Shoko how he feels, it's all going to rot. But while they were going about their business, L sent a message to the base saying that the infiltration was a success. Because of this, the base colonel decides to send a reply, so they order the Virgin Rod operation to begin, so robots start invading the school. The students wondered what was going on as a battle started in the middle of the campus. Meanwhile, some scientists were wondering why the Dorsian fleet is here and why the hell are they bombing them, since Geor is a neutral country. One of them suggests that they should use the Valvrave, but at that moment all are eliminated, and the responsible for this is nothing more and nothing less than L. It turns out that this group was looking for the Valvrave, this robot here. However, it so happens that one was still alive, so with his last breath he presses a button and takes the robot to the surface away from this group. Go one alive, piyun, much better. By coincidence of life, when the robot came to the surface, the Prote and the others were passing by the place. But here the thing is going to get complicated, since Shoko was running towards a car since there was someone inside. But unfortunately at that moment an attack fell towards that place, and there was not even a trace of the car. When seeing that Shoko is not there, the desperate Prote begins to look for her, and says that it is not the moment to play hide and seek. However, the others tell him to accept the reality and that Shoko has died. After this, the Prote is furious, and without thinking twice, he climbs into the robot. Haruto manages to activate the robot, but he couldn't make it move, and to make his situation worse outside, he is under attack. At that moment, the protagonist notices a message on the screen, asking him if he renounces to be treated as a human being. Meanwhile, this waifu began to stream what was happening, returning to the protagonist. He decides to renounce to be treated as a human being. By doing this, the robot works, so the prota goes out to battle and defeats them one by one. Haruto manages to win the robot, and the whole school saw that he was the one piloting it. And as all this was on stream, the prota became popular and received a lot of requests as many people wanted to be his friend. But the prota was only thinking about something, and that is Shoko. So the prota starts to cry seeing that Shoko is not there. L attacks the prota, and it seemed that he had sent him with God and all. But in that the prota gets up as if nothing had happened and bites L's neck. Haruto's friends find him lying on the floor and seriously injured, so they want to take him to the infirmary. However, to their bad luck, the group of infiltrators shows up and orders them to get away from the robot, but that group of infiltrators is in for a big surprise, as one of their companions, L, disarmed Q. But not only that, as he told Haruto's friends to leave through the ventilation duct. One of the infiltration group asks him what this is all about and why he is targeting them. However, L says nothing, and at that moment he attacks one of his companions and also escapes through the ventilation. But why is L doing all this? It turns out that L is not L, but Haruto, and he confesses to his friends that he doesn't know why he is in this body. Meanwhile, the Dorsian army was invading Geor, and at school a Geor student was like, "Why the fuck do we have to turn in cell phones?" The Dorsians beat this student mercilessly and even kick him on the ground for a while, as they are told that resistance is futile and that right now Geore has completely surrendered. So they tell all the students that the country they knew as Geore has fallen and that this land now belongs to Dorsia. Back to the prota, his friends were checking to see if it was him by playing rock, paper, scissors, and in the end they came to the conclusion that it really is Haruto. His friend asked the prota when is it that he learned to shoot, to which Rukino says it's the same as amnesia, since even if you forget who you are, you don't forget how to talk or use a phone. So the prota who finds that fighting was something normal for the body he's using right now. So Haruto wonders who this body will be. Although, well, first they have to worry about more important things, like getting Haruto's body back. But Haruto says that not only will he get his body back, but he wants to return to the robot and plans to chase after every Dorsian, as he thinks nothing else will quench his bloodlust, as the prota is still pissed off that those guys killed Shoko. However, things are not in favor for the country, as Georgia's government has completely surrendered, and at the Dorsian base they report that they have incapacitated the enemy forces in Module 7-7 and that the Georgians are being deported as they speak. They also secured the robot, of which is barely damaged, and they even have Haruto's body and everything. In which the commander asks where L is, but this guy doesn't know what to answer. However, Q jumps in and says that L betrayed them, and here they are put in context that L wounded A and then fled, and they still don't know why, if they knew it wasn't really L and it was the protagonist. This surprises some Dorsian soldiers, as they never heard that he defected to a graduate of the Karastane Institute, and that at the time, he appears to him, or well actually the prota, which ends with these soldiers. The prota's friends are surprised that he has been a friazo and finished with the soldiers as if nothing. But Haruto responds that they are at war. Scientists of the enemy country are analyzing the robot, but in that the Prota falls from the sky and ends with the enemies who were guarding his body. And seeing his own body, the Prota realizes that he has no wounds. The Prota got into the robot, but he is not going to go alone since Saki got in with him, but she comes to help the Prota since first they tie the hands of L's body, and Saki tells the Prota to repeat the same steps that caused the change, so the Prota is going to do so. And this indeed worked, since Haruto returned his own body. At that moment L wakes up, and the surprise to see Haruto asks him why he is still alive. Haruto begins to pilot the robot, and went straight to attack the ship of the Dorsians. However, it didn't take them long to send the protagonist to the water, while one day NL, looking at the protagonist, wonders if he is a rookie. However, Haruto just followed the path until he reached the space, and they can even see the world and everything of the world. But at that moment that out of nowhere enemies appear and start attacking them. NL tells the Prota to surrender and that they will not be able to win with only one unit. And although he told him this, the Prota is going to give it all in battle. On the other hand, AA gets on his ship as he can't keep calm in this situation, since let's remember that in his eyes L is a traitor. Dorsia's army is going to take out the mighty, as they are going to take out the real jewel of his army, the ideal heavy assault unit. So Dorsia is willing to show why they can defeat the almighty Arus. Haruto is massively attacked, and L recognizes the attack, as he knows it is a Dre. The situation seems to get worse for the protagonist, because on the robot, a number is going up, and Haruto explains to Asaki that when that number reaches 100, the robot will stop moving, which is a problem. To make matters worse, without him realizing it, L had unleashed, so he holds Asaki and takes her as a Ren. L asks them to surrender, and tells Haruto to send the disarm signal. At that moment, A collides with them, and asks L why he shot him. L obviously reacts surprised and wonders what he is talking about. L asks the Prota for an explanation, and asks him what is going on here. But Asaki answers him and tells him that L shot his partner. L obviously can't believe it and says he didn't do something like that. For his part, Q is very excited and thanks L for betraying them, since Q always wanted to fight against L. A asks Q to stay out of it, since he tells him that this is between L and him. Going back to the Prota and L was still questioning what happened with A, since obviously he can't ever believe that he would have done that. And at that moment that the Prota's phone starts ringing. Upon checking his phone, the Prota realizes that Shoko is calling, as yes, it turns out that Shoko all this time was alive, because it turns out that Shoko was stuck underground trapped in the car. The Prota is overjoyed to hear that Shoko is alive, but they can't talk much as Shoko is low on battery. However, the Prota tells her that he will be back soon and that they need to talk face to face, as Haruto tells him that when he returns, he wants them to finish the conversation. They started at the shrine. Haruto receives a powerful attack, so the robot's number rises to over 100. But the cap that had the number of 100 also changes, as out of nowhere the number changed to 6666. Devil. The robot was not moving, so the Prota was getting desperate as to whether or not he wants to go back because he made a promise to Shoko. But to Kaylee he gives him a help, as he tells him that the engine still works, and also tells him to look at the heat indicator capacity as it has jumped from 100 to 6666. However, the Prota was worried about the warning messages around him, so the Prota wondered what is beyond 6666, to which LL replies that probability, and once the number reached 66666, the robot starts to glow, and that the Prota makes a sucker attack, as literally the robot commits harakiri, and by doing this thanks to this attack, A's ship was damaged, so the Dorsians had no choice but to retreat. Once the Dorsians left, LL asked the Prota for an explanation, since LL tells Haruto that he killed him at that moment, so he asks him again why he shot Adre, since LL says he doesn't remember doing that. So he asks the Prota if this was all his doing, and calls him a monster and all. Meanwhile, Shuko managed to surface. Haruto finally came back and was able to meet with Shuko and the others, and once they are together, Shuko asked him what he wanted to tell her, so he reminds her what they were talking about at the shrine. And here the Prota would have had a great opportunity to tell Shoko how he feels. However, the Prota says, "Shoko, I want to tell you that F is your shirt." So after saying that, the Prota runs away, making the excuse that he wants to go to the bathroom. Haruto's friend followed him and asked him what happened, since he knows that Haruto likes Shoko. But Haruto asks him what choice he had, since Haruto says that he has become a monster, and says that monsters have no feelings. So after saying that, Haruto starts crying. But let's talk a little more about the rivalry that exists in this world. Since let's remember that we are in an era in which 70% of the human population lives in space, and humanity is divided into two opposing factions. The Military Federation of Dorsia, born of countless military treaties, and Arus, the United States of the Atlantic Circle that comes from multiple trade agreements. But in the midst of all this, a third nation managed to thrive in the shadow of these two giants, Gaior. A quiet nation proclaiming peace and neutrality until Dorsia caused chaos with a surprise attack. Knowing all this, we return to L, who is tied up, and Haruto tells all he knows about L as he reports that he is a soldier of Dorsia, and when they hear his name, at a touch they point at him and ask him to stand up and take him away. But before leaving, L says the following words to the Prota, Megaphone Earthquake Panic 314, the answer is behind you. This will be important for later, you'll see why. Arus's army arrives in Gaior, so the students seeing the army become rejoicing, and along with the army, Senator Figaro arrived. At the same time, Haruto and the others arrived at the school, and seeing Haruto arrived, the students gratefully surrounded him, as they think they are now safe, and Haruto thinks so too. Meanwhile, the army is being wary of L, as in the New Guinea conflict 2 years ago, L took out a battalion 5,000 times stronger all by himself. That's what gave him the nickname of the Legion Man, and here they tell L that they didn't expect him to be so young. However, L is doing his thing, and this is a Mozic tool that L will use later on, you'll see. Back to Haruto, he is getting some tests done, but everything comes back normal. However, Haruto says that it is not normal for his wounds to regenerate quickly, so this girl suggests that they should talk to a doctor, and Haruto's friend mentions that maybe the army can do something, but Rukino tells them not to even think about it, as she says that the army will turn him into a lab rat, so she stresses to them not to trust adults. Haruto out of nowhere starts to feel weird, and out of nowhere Haruto gets wild as he tries to attack his friend, so Rukino slaps him and prescribes the windows to the Prota, making him go back to normal. So worried, Haruto asks what did he do, to which Rukino replies that he attacked as if he were a vampire. At that moment, Haruto remembers how he attacked L in the same way, so Haruto says it's not the first time it's happened. Because of this, Haruto freaks out, saying that he is not a human being, and who knows what things he could do to his friends, but they tell him to relax. They even tell him that he saved him with that power. At that moment, Wild Kisensei appears and informs Haruto that Senator Figaro wants to talk to him. Haruto meets Senator Figaro, and the senator shows him the comments that people left him on the stream while the Prota was fighting, so the senator says that thanks to these comments they were able to know that Haruto was fighting. And while we're on the subject of comments, it's a good time for you to leave a comment on this video, so comment below in the comments, the GOAT. Continuing with the stream theme, Kisensei asks who uploaded it, so he asks if it was some student or something, to which Haruto replies that he doesn't know. The senator tells the Prota that he should write something, and that the whole world is worried about them after what happened, and that the Arus army saved him. And at the touch of posting the message, he got a lot of responses and even got on the news and all the paranoia. And not only that, since renowned writers, top athletes, and even the president are now friends with Haruto, so Haruto has 700 million friends, and since everyone knows that Haruto is the high school boy who fought alone against Dorsia's terrible army, people call him the boy who fought against the world. So the senator tells Haruto that he is the ray of hope of Gaior and that it is a symbol of fight against the Dorsian tyranny. Returning with him, they want to inject him with nutrients, since it would be a violation of treaty that they don't give him food, but at that moment he uses him the mouse herramienta that he had prepared, so he throws it against the focus, and once he got rid of the light, he got free easily, so he started to eliminate them one by one, and once he got freedom, he plans him to start the plan of 7. Meanwhile, in the Dorsia ship, the colonel is with the group, to which he and A asks the colonel to allow them to participate in the recapture of Module 77. The colonel tells them that they seem to be missing someone. However, A says that there is an explanation and tries to defend L, but is told that L has caused damage to the Navy. However, the colonel says that he is not the enemy of friendship and that the Valvrave is his top priority right now. So the colonel decides to ignore any irregularities that may have occurred during the operation, so he asks them to make sure they get the Valvrave back. Going back to Haruto, he was making the students follow the soldiers' instructions, and he also says not to worry and that he will protect them with the robot, so he says that Arus will help them. At that moment, the Prota realizes that he is talking through a megaphone, so he remembers the words L told him, as he had mentioned something about a megaphone. Meanwhile, L is analyzing the situation, since according to his current troops, the best option is retreat. So if they want the evacuation to go well, L comes to the conclusion that they will use a student, and L knows that that right student will be Haruto. At that moment, an alert begins to sound, as they notify that Dorsia's prisoner has escaped, and since it took them about 15 minutes to notify, L grades their efficiency level at E. The soldiers begin to search for L, but L escapes like it's nothing. While he escapes, Haruto is searching inside the school to see if he can find anyone, and outside are the students gathered together waiting. At that, Shoko notices someone walking inside the school. Her friend tells her that it might be Haruto, but since Shoko knows Haruto well, she knows it's not him. So Shoko runs out to the school. Haruto meets the student who asks her to give him the robot, and that he with the robot wants to avenge someone, but Haruto tells her that he can't do that. Meanwhile, Shoko is looking for them, but instead of finding the Prota, she found this waifu. At that moment, Arus's ship was attacked, and this causes an earthquake, so they warn the senator that they cannot guarantee a safe evacuation. So basically, they are trapped. Because of the earthquake, the students start to panic, and so far everything else said happened. What if the megaphone, earthquake, panic, and when the clock struck 3:14, the Prota ran into L, and upon reaching the Prota, L mentions that the DVI plan has been completed. The Prota, seeing L, asks him if that is the answer, to which L offers the Prota to make a pact, so L tells him that they will take the revolution to Dorsia. The people of Arus are having a meeting, and plan for half a year to use their armed forces to defend their borders. Besides that, they plan to use all their resources in mass production of the weapon, as they want to copy Gior's weapon, so as soon as they have Gior's secret weapon, Arus will go to war with Dorsia. Back to L, L had told Haruto that they are taking the revolution to Dorsia. The Prota is surprised by this, as L is a soldier of Dorsia. However, L tells him that by using his power and the Valvrave, his revolution would come 5 years ahead of schedule. Haruto tells L to fuck off and reminds him that they are enemies, yet L tells him that he has no choice. He also tells him that his actions will be rewarded and that he will save this school and also his girl, referring to Shoko. And speaking of Shoko, she had discovered this waifu who starts throwing things out of nowhere. Shoko tries to talk to her and asks her what that transmission was, but the scared waifura simply tells her not to talk to anyone and not to tell anyone that she is here. Returning to L, L tells the Prota that this is no time to argue over ideals and tells him that to protect what he cares about, he must stand his ground. At that moment, the Prota sees through the window how the Valvrave is being taken away and thinks he can still use it to free the ship. L tells him not to bother and that making a deal with him is his only option to move forward. But Haruto tells him that he won't know if he doesn't try. However, LL says that his predictions are prophecies, so LL tells him that when the time comes, make this sign, and then he will save him. Haruto goes to Senator Figaro and asks him not to use the robot, as he tells him it is dangerous, but Figaro replies that soldiers live off danger. That's how a soldier got inside the robot. But once he entered on the robot's screen, he got a message that said, "Badly done." And this message was right, since at that moment the soldier was eliminated. The thing and even worse even more, since the Dorsians are coming. So upon learning this information, Senator Figaro decides that they are going to leave the students here. So he asks for a fast vehicle for him and says that he will go by himself with the robot if need be and that he doesn't care about the students. Shoko heard the whole call, so she was shocked, as she did not expect this from Senator Figaro. Haruto reminds her of the words Figaro said, as they were all supposed to leave. But Figaro tells him that they really only came for him, but still Figaro tells Haruto that he is not the most important thing thing on the list and that he should feel grateful. Haruto gets upset about this, but the soldiers stop him, so Haruto bites one of the soldiers. But here Haruto realized that it didn't work if he doesn't bite on the skin. The soldier is not going to stay still for this, so he slaps Haruto. Senator Figaro goes to the students and tells them not to worry, that the tremors from before were caused by the malfunctioning of the gravitational system. So he tells them that as soon as the maintenance is finished, they will start with the evacuation. Shoko, when listening to what Figaro says, obviously knows that he is lying, so Shoko wonders what he should do in this situation. So he decides to call Haruto, but Haruto is tied up and with his mouth covered, and as a soldier saw that Haruto was calling him, he hangs up the call. This makes Shoko feel sad and thinks that Haruto is angry. At that moment, Inuzuka arrived, who was looking for Shoko, but Shoko sees him and tells him that they have a problem. Thanks to this, the student council held an emergency meeting. So at the meeting, Shoko tells them that Arus has been lying to them. Shoko is asked if she has any proof of this. Shoko replies that she overheard from a military transmission. But the four-eyed man tells her that all Arus transmissions use a special complicated encryption system, so there's no such thing as a fluke. Shoko could have said more data, but he remembered on the waifu who told him not to talk to anyone, so Shoko had nothing more to say. So the chairman says the emergency meeting is dissolved. Shoko begs him to believe her, but the chairman replies that if he has to believe anyone, it is Arus. However, Shoko says that they are going to run away and leave them here, and that they just want the robot and will do anything. But the chairman tells her that they will leave as soon as the artificial gravity is fixed. Shoko, seeing that no one believes her, goes to use the last beam she has, so she starts to undress. And she is doing this because she says she is not lying. Because of this, the president has no choice, and says he believes her. So with the help of some students, this blonde is going to distract some soldiers. So the students start singing while Shoko and the others infiltrate. A soldier warns Figaro that the preparations are ready, so Figaro orders Haruto to be picked up, and says that they will leave as soon as the students finish singing. Meanwhile, Haruto was about to be taken away, but at that moment Shoko and the others appeared. Upon finding Haruto tied up, Shoko realizes that he was not the one who hung up the call, so she feels calmer. Going back to Figaro, he wanted to leave, but the blonde was doing her best to burn time. And just when Figaro gave the order to leave, Haruto arrived and tells the students not to be fooled and that Arus wants to leave them all lying here. Hearing the prota's words, the students start to doubt Arus, so they ask questions, and the soldier was asking Figaro what to do, but Figaro is like, call me Moses, because I'm gonna split this sea of students before your eyes. After saying that, Figaro begins to shoot like sick, and Haruto, seeing that they were taking the robot, goes after him. Haruto manages to get hold of the robot, so once he has it, he asks Arus to lower the weapons, and since they have no other choice, they do so. Seeing this, the students are happy as they feel safe, but among the crowd, he tells them that they are not safe yet, as he says that the situation has not changed at all. And here he informs them that this module is surrounded by the Dorsian fleet, but not only that, as all Gaior, except for this module, have been occupied by Dorsia, so he tells them that they have basically kidnapped their families. Hearing all this, the students were wondering what is going to happen now, and Haruto was looking at L, who at that moment gave him the signal. Haruto was thinking about the deal, but Shoko catches Haruto's attention as she wants to give a message. Shoko tells the students not to worry and that they won't let Dorsia lay a finger on their families. The chairman of the council replies that they have Rene's and that they can blackmail them. Shoko replies that then they have to blackmail Dorsia, as Shoko says that if they do anything to the families, then they will give the robot to Arus, Dorsia's enemies. The students are fine with having the robot as a Ren, but that's not all, as when Senator Figaro was trying to slyly leave, Shoko tells him that they won't give him the robot, but asks him to fight alongside them. Senator Figaro replies to keep dreaming, and tells her that they don't have things in their favor. Shoko replies that if he doesn't, then they will give the robot to Dorsia. Meanwhile, A and the others were attacking through space, and A was wondering why the Valvrave doesn't come out. However, at that moment, which wild robot appears, just what A wanted. The Prote with the robot starts attacking his own module. So the Dorsians wonder what he is doing, but the Prote is doing this because Shoko told the students that they should not depend on anyone. That's why Shoko proposed that they become independent. The teacher wants to turn the school into an independent stadium that will negotiate with Dorsia and Arus as equals. And at the time of the vote, most of the students agreed with this. So the main character with the robot ended up separating the module. L, seeing what Shuko did and how she convinced them, asks who she is, to which the teacher answers that she is Sashinami Shuko, the daughter of the president of Geore. And L even felt weird and everything, since he began to laugh, and it had been a long time since the last time he did it. Now that he is an independent, Shuko goes shopping with Haruto. And a week has passed since Shuko declared his independence. So while the armies of Dorsia and Arus are still busy between them, a strange and unknown peace reigns in the module 77. And for the moment, everything was laughter. Meanwhile, in the White House of Arus are talking about the module of the Prota. But they think they are just children, and that they can dialogue with them. Instead, the priority for Arus and the real threat to the country is Dorsia. Dr. Kibukawa is observing the robot and thinks that this is beyond Gear's technology, even humanity. The sensei meets the doctor, and since she just left the hospital, she asks him what he is doing. The doctor replies that he will stay here from now on, as he wants to find out what exactly the robot is. Inuzuka tells Haruto that he has created a page to receive donations since the money is important, and so far they have collected some of the donations. This makes Inuzuka sad since he expected more donations, as Inuzuka says that if each of the followers had donated 1 yen, then they would have some of the donations, basically a lot of money. At that moment, they are going to have a problem, since the power goes out in the whole module, and the one who is going to suffer the most is the waifu who spends her time using the computer. Just listen to her. And to make everyone's situation worse, it starts to snow. Dr. Kibukawa tells Sensei that surely the environmental system must have broken down. So the doctor starts throwing a lot of data that obviously Sensei is not understanding, as she just nods her head as if she was understanding him, but luckily the 4 eyes if she was understanding him, as he was like, wow. So it is because of the resonance in the fields, as this guy knows what the problem is, they take him away so he can fix it. The 4 eyes goes up the stairs in fear, as he says it is too high, but they tell him that he is the only one who understands how to fix it. Because of the weather, all the students are dying from the cold. Looking for the way to fix it, the 4 eyes had an accident since the floor was broken, and it seemed that it was the end of the 4 eyes. However, the student who was with him was able to save him. This girl was really sad thinking about her mother, and she was also very cold, but Shoko tells her that everything will be fine and that soon she will be warm. However, the blonde explodes here and tells Shoko not to be so irresponsible, and tells her that all this is her fault to begin with, so they start blaming Shoko for having declared her independence. Rukino defends Shoko and tells the girls who were attacking her that they also agreed with independence since they voted for it. At that, Rukino bites the blonde on the hand, and here she tried to do what Haruto does, but it didn't work. The blonde obviously doesn't react well, so she slaps Rukino and asks her why she did that. The tension of the atmosphere increases since several girls started to argue, so Haruto tried to calm her down, but he didn't manage to do it. However, at that moment Shoko starts to sing, so the tension was diverted to her. Rukino wanted to leave, but when she was about to leave, the blonde slapped her again. However, this time Rukino was not going to stay still, as she slapped her back. Going back to the 4 eyes, the solution was very simple, as she only had to press a button. So after doing so, the light came back to the module, so the students felt safe again. The Prota asks Rukino if she is okay, to which she replies that she is and that she is used to it. So after saying that Rukino was about to leave, but Haruto stopped her and asked Shoko to do it again, so they invited Rukino to sing. Haruto together with Shoko and Inuzuka make a stream for the people of Geore. In that stream they communicate to the people of Geore that they are fine and they are doing great. Yes, they even broadcast them a song and everything in which Rukino sang. After that stream, the funds improved considerably, as they are climbing like never before. Rukino is accompanying the Prota as they go to put the robot away. But when they got to the bottom, they find that there are more robots. Seeing that there are more robots, Rukino gets excited and says that they are like the colors of the rainbow. But Haruto asks him if he can keep this a secret, as he tells him that he doesn't want any more monsters like him. Rukino tells him that it's okay, but in return he asks Haruto to be the two of them alone, and at that moment that Rukino gives the Prota a kiss.